Hi everyone. We are back today again to talk about the COVID and what's happening in the state, etc. So I thought before I bring our guest on, I'll give you a little bit of a background of why I'm really looking forward to it today. My father was a freedom fighter. He's somebody who fought for India, and I shared this before. And he's somebody who went to jail, for many years while fighting for freedom, etc. And he was a firm believer in the political process in India. And he was a Padma Bhushan, he was a pediatrician. And many of the political rallies or whenever there were elections, our house was a campaign site in terms of creating the posters or all kinds of things. So all the Congress workers would be in our house, and my father was a khadi wearing pediatrician, and they would create all the campaigns and all that stuff. So I grew up in a household that was heavily influenced by politics. My father was very good friends with many presidents, from V.V. Giri to Venkatraman to many people, and we used to meet all of them, etc. And for me, politics always remained, interesting area, but something I never really got interested in or really got involved in. But there's one thing my father used to say that always stuck with me, is that it is so easy to criticize. It's so easy to say, this is not working and that is not working. And he always used to say, if you really want to bring about change in India, you have to be part of politics. If everybody, kind of complains about it, if everyone says, it's not for me, then who's going to actually do the good work? And for the last, 3 months, we've been involved in a project where we were working quite closely with the central government. And I realized that to have anything be accomplished in India at scale, we must be in good understanding of our political system, of our politicians, of issues, of the process. And so that's why, as we are talking about COVID, we've had so far a lawyer, we had a doctor, and they were talking about the government readiness, etc. So who better to continue the conversation than someone who is the bridge between the Karnataka government and this advisory task force and central government. And someone, so I have to tell you about our guest. Tejasvi Surya is a member of the parliament from the Bengaluru South constituency, and he's a lawyer, he's interested in history, philosophy, many things. And if you anything from urban mobility to to data sovereignty, to privacy, education, he's really involved in a lot of these things. And I would love to bring him on to share with us about his journey, as well as what's ahead of us and what role is government playing in COVID, which is what we are talking about in these sessions at 7 o'clock. So I also want to say that hi.
Namaste, ma'am. How are you? So nice to see you.
Yeah, I was just telling them you're 28. I think you weren't even born when I left this country, so, and you're doing so much more than any of us can ever think of doing. So thank you for taking the time to join.
Thank you so much, madam, for this opportunity. And on behalf of all young people here, I would want to thank you and your wonderful team for the great work that all of you have been doing in helping ideate and come up with better solutions in this hour of crisis for the country. Expressing our gratitude to all of you.
Talking about that, Tejasvi, I hope you don't mind me calling you by your first name.
Because please, not at all, madam. You are my mother's age, and I consider and hold you in the same respect.
Practically be my son, so I just hope you don't mind me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so, the thing is, you've been doing a lot of things, especially in the area of education, etc. When you saw that a lot of the 10th graders are getting single digit marks, you've taken that on. And right now, I mean, for us, for the whole world, not just for India, this COVID has been a huge issue. And you are the bridge between the Karnataka government and the central government, and also the the advisory board that I'm part of. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about what has been your experience, and what has been it for you to be this bridge between the state government and the central government. So tell us a little bit about how has it been for you in the last 2 weeks.
Thank you so much, madam. I think the whole COVID-19 crisis is unprecedented in the sense that in the last 100 years, humankind has not witnessed a pandemic of this scale. Therefore, the whole world, governments across the world are trying to grapple with this issue. We are trying to evolve solutions as we go, learn as quickly as possible, unlearn from the mistakes that we would have done, adapt to new concepts and administrative innovations on an everyday basis. So these are very interesting times for people who are at the helm of public affairs, governance and administration. Having said that, I would want to say that in comparison with many other countries in the world, the Indian government, both at the center as well as the states, have shown great alacrity, great flexibility, as well as unprecedented coordination in understanding and also responding to this unfolding crisis. One good thing that I would want to say here is, irrespective of the political complications and political divisions on the basis of political complexions in the state and center, all state governments without an exception have in fact come together under the leadership of the Prime Minister and have launched a very coordinated effort in dealing with this crisis. And I would want to say that from the first day, that is the 31st of January, when the first case of COVID positive was reported in India, the central government has been very proactive in taking a host of measures, whether it was imposing restrictions on foreign travel from the hotspot countries, whether it was ensuring thermal screening of passengers from all of these countries, whether it was also restriction on import and export of certain commodities which were essential for Indian usage as in this time of crisis, whether it was coordinating and formulating a national task force with the help of the best minds in the field of public health policy, ICMR, Drug Control Authority, the National Institute of Virology, and the quickness in response has been pretty inspiring and has also drawn the appreciation from the WHO also. And in a country like India, madam, like you very rightly pointed out, which has a federal system of governance, the big challenge is coordination between the center and the state. And I must place credit to at all the chief ministers of various states that there has been impeccable coordination between various state governments and the center, and our political leadership has risen to the occasion and has displayed great political maturity and handling this crisis in a very coordinated fashion. Insofar as my personal work is concerned, madam, in terms of bridging the communication between the center and the state, there have been many occasions where we have communicated the requirements of the state government to the authorities in the center, whether it is a transportation and requirement of PPEs, masks, ventilators, permissions from Bangalore-based laboratories and startups to procure permissions from ICMR for testing, or for licensing with the Union Home Ministry and Health Ministry for procuring permissions. for transportation of essential goods and commodities for vehicles, intrastate and interstate. So these are something that we have done specifically from our office. In addition to that, for my constituency, we have specifically launched a Bengaluru South Coronavirus Task Force, where more than 3,000 volunteers living across the constituency have come to be a part of a WhatsApp group network based across the constituency. And I must place on record today my appreciation and gratitude to these dedicated, committed volunteers, for they tomorrow will complete delivery and service of 1 lakh meals to migrant workers in and around the Bengaluru city. So in addition to that, we have helped migrant laborers, senior citizens procure essentials, help hospitals in my constituency with essential kits. It is a water supply, whether it is...
I'm losing your voice, Tejasvi.
Can you hear me now, madam?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Yeah.
Yes. So whether it is helping, whether it is helping hospitals in the constituency better equip themselves with infrastructure, this task force and its dedicated volunteers have done a splendid job, and I can only wish all of them the very best for the coming challenges in the days ahead.
I mean, I do want to tell you about one thing. One of our, Inc. fellows was visiting here, and he got sick. I mean, not with COVID. He just was, sick, and he couldn't get up and go get his medicine, So he contacted the task force. Someone actually came home and delivered the medicine for him. So we have actually experienced it firsthand.
Thank you so much, madam. I must tell you, till today, we have helped more than 16,000 people. 16,000 senior citizens in procuring essential commodities, groceries, vegetables, fruits, medicines, all delivered at their homes, their doorstep, because they happen to be, madam, the high-risk population, and we want every single senior citizen to be as safe as possible.
So one of the questions I have for you, one of the things we've been reading about is not enough PPEs, are the doctors being taken care of? Because we've had cases, not necessarily here, but around where in Delhi, etc., where the doctors and nurses got sick. What can you tell us about, is there an increase in production of PPEs? I mean, what are we doing to make sure that doctors and the healthcare workers are safe?
Madam, very first point is that the government at the center level, immediately after the assessment that a situation posing an imminent threat is around the corner, prohibited the export of all these essential medical supplies from India. This was a very important step. Therefore, the indigenous stock that was always in the country has been kept for the benefit and the usage of Indian doctors, so to speak. Second, in terms of ventilators, there are many companies which are now in contact with the Indian government, both at the center and the state levels. One of them happens to be a Bangalore-based company also. It's called Scanray. And they also have been in touch with the state government to ramp up production. In addition to that, many universities, institutes of eminence like IITs, IIMs have also been requested to develop ideas and solutions which will help create more cost-effective ventilators, innovation in medical equipment devices. So these are also being done. In addition to that, the state government of Karnataka has also placed orders for more than 3 lakh PPEs from different parts of the world, and all of them, as we speak, the work orders have been issued, and all of them are being procured and distributed to the healthcare workers. In addition to that, madam, with respect to essential medical supplies, it may be hydroxychloroquine, or it may be such other important drugs, and also testing kits which are so crucial. You may have noticed that the ICMR has been very active and has been on a day-to-day basis monitoring the progress. the bureaucratic the lengthy bureaucratic processes have been given a go-by on a war footing. Testing kits are being approved. Even as we speak now, more than 7 lakh rapid antibody testing kits have been ordered by ICMR, which will be delivered to India very soon. A strategy is also in place to make use of every single PCR machine to enhance our PCR testing capacity as well. So I think to understand the 3 basic ideas of testing, tracing and treating, all the essentials that are there, the government has on a war footing done that. We have also augmented the capacity of the doctors, whether who are not necessarily government doctors, who are retired doctors, people from different specialities, to man helplines and do teleconsultancy. I must also place on record the efforts put in by private organizations, private startups, whether it is a Practo, whether it is a clinic, whether it is organizations like these, private organizations like this, which are also helping government in the time of this need, in helping in giving their expertise in teleconsultancy, telemedicine, etc. So all of these things are the multi-pronged approach of the union government. So I would say that we have handled this in a very calibrated fashion till now. And the lockdown also has been specifically very successful. So we will see how the days go.
So one thing you said was very interesting in the beginning is that this is unprecedented, and we had to unlearn a lot of things also. While we learn a lot of things, we had to unlearn a lot of things. So for you personally, what is the biggest unlearning you had to do?
For me, I will give a two-pronged answer, madam. The first thing is that at the government level, I think generally the government has a very stringent bureaucratic system through which governments work. And there are also, I think, one unlearning in this crisis time has been the need for quick response. And quick response and lengthy bureaucratic systems do not go hand in hand. So one learning and one adaptation, I would say, has been to do away with unnecessary red tapeism and bureaucratic procedures to enable quick decision making. Second, in terms of, I think government bodies and government agencies generally are not very enthusiastic about partnership with private agencies. And I think this is a period where I have seen the government, especially I would say, at the central government level and also at the Karnataka level, there has been a very impressive response and partnership with the private corporates, startups, private laboratories in the last so many, the weeks and the days before, which was unprecedented, because there is a inherent resistance by government and government authorities to partnership with have partnership with private agencies, private laboratories, private startups. But the other adaptation that I have seen, which is a healthy adaptation, is this appreciation and understanding the value that private agencies and organizations also bring to the table. I think the third important learning that has taken place is understanding the importance of technology in implementing solutions. So, for example, the war room that is set up here in Bangalore by the local corporation and the state health authorities is again a very tech-based platform. So now whether it is tracing of those people who are under home quarantine, whether it is an app which actually tells you if you have crossed paths with people who were COVID positive, or solutions using drone and GPS technology to monitor densely populated populations and pockets in the city where better policing and isolation and lockdown can be achieved. Ensuring Google Map integration with simple technologies, including WhatsApp and such other tech-based platforms, to having home delivery of essential services. So I think this quick adaptation of technology in our governance is also a good, a positive outcome in this 21-day lockdown phase.
You know, you're somebody who talks a lot about data sovereignty, data privacy. You've been working a lot in that area. And then we also, the lawyer, we were talking about the Epidemic Act, that's been there for 120 years or so that we are following today. Because when there is a huge epidemic like this, or a pandemic like this, everything trumps over. Everything it doesn't hold good anymore. Whatever is right for the country, you need to do that. So there could be a compromise of data privacy. There could be a compromise of data sovereignty for the larger good. So how do you think these two would be balanced?
It's a very interesting question, madam, that you have posed. But I would want to say that today, India does not have an exclusive legislation or a statutory framework to guide our concerns and mandate on privacy, which is why the Data Privacy Bill, which was introduced in the Parliament in 2019 and which is now presently being considered and studied by a Joint Parliamentary Committee, of which I am also a part of, is going to be a game-changing legislation for India. So I was just reading a few days ago this very interesting article by Yuval Noah Harari on how the post-COVID world order will be very refreshingly different, and we have two options. Either we can build institutions which will inspire more trust and faith in the government, or we will have a system which will be based on surveillance and which will be based on monitoring every action of the government, of the citizen, without adequate respect to individual privacy. I think the data protection law will also help in understanding and safeguarding privacy rights of individuals. At the same time, I also want to place on record the importance of having non-personal, anonymized, non-personal data with the help at the disposal of the government agencies. For example, one of the biggest challenges that state administrations faced in the initial days of the lockdown was to identify who were these migrant laborers. How many of them were in Bangalore? Where are they exactly? And where do they come from? And how can we help them? These were the basic questions that needed to be answered. Unfortunately, neither the Labour Department, nor the Bangalore City Corporation, nor did the Police Department, nor did the authorities who sanction building certificates and occupation certificates, or the local corporation authorities, none of them had adequate data on the number of migrant laborers, who are their employers, where are they from, what do they need. And the first entire week went in collecting this data, because without this data you don't know how to help them. So I think collection of data, procuring the data, safeguarding the data is a very important thing. And I think it's a fine balance between protecting human privacy, individual privacy, and the need for public policy measures. For example, the Prime Minister has announced a host of measures in ameliorative measures to support the most weak and the vulnerable sections. And one of the game-changing measures is the direct benefit transfer. So the central government in Delhi will say, I am going to transfer 2,000 rupees to the farmers. Directly it goes deposited to their mobile, to their bank accounts, and they'll also receive a SMS telling them that such and such amount of money has been deposited in their accounts. So unless there is such integration of data with government systems, it is very difficult to monitor and address specific needs in this time of distress. On the other hand, on the other extreme, you also hear cases from China where people are targeted, those who are under home quarantine, were targeted using facial recognition softwares at every single junction, etc. So, this whole question of what is right, what is extreme, what is permissible, what is impermissible, perhaps must be handled on a case-to-case basis to understand the larger benefit, larger public policy good. That I think must be the approach. So we have a lot of learning to do.
Yeah, no, I just want to say one of the things you said that's very important post-COVID world is that hopefully we can bring our data gathering capability with what needs to be done with the right ethical proportion, so that, for example, you would have known where the migrant workers are. You would have known how to help the farmers much easier. So a lot of times maybe we have the data we don't need, but we don't have the data that we need. So as people are transferring, and I think that will bring a lot of hopefully transparency also, so people can see that if I can see somewhere that this is the money that was sent, this is the farmer who received it, I would trust the government a lot more too, because right now I see an NREGA budget or I see some other budget, but I have no idea what happened to it, and the poverty doesn't seem to go away. So we really hope that under the leadership of...
The beauty of technology is that technology can be used for both things. Technology can be used to inspire faith in and trust in government. Technology can also be used to impose surveillance and monitoring and diminish the trust in institutions. Which way we go will depend on the nature of political leadership and their maturity. And I think today we have a prime minister in whom the country has so much faith and so much respect and trust that a call from the prime minister to whether it is thank our frontline healthcare workers by congratulating them at 5 p.m. or lighting of diyas to express our solidarity in this fight at 9 p.m. The country rises as one. You do not need coercion to do this. And people are doing this because they're self-motivated. They are taught and they are carried together. I was talking to the commissioner of the Bangalore City Police, and he said that the city of Bengaluru has about 1.2 crore people, and the total police force in the city is about 25 to 30,000. So if we have to enforce the lockdown by sheer force and coercion, it is not possible for a 30,000 strong police force to enforce an effective lockdown unless people themselves decide to respect the rule of law. And what he said was, it is the Prime Minister's word and the trust that the people have in his leadership that they are respecting this call for a lockdown. Because people are today educated that they need to stay indoors because it is beneficial not only for themselves but for the whole society. So I think this is a very positive step, and like you very rightly pointed out, madam, technology should be used to usher in more transparency, more faith in government institutions, and make people a part of this governance mainstreaming.
So Tejasvi, we are out of time. So I just want to wrap up by saying a lot of people love you. I've been seeing the comments. There is a lot of pride and love for you. So congratulations.
I'm so grateful for all that love, madam.
And then, so I just want to wrap up by saying that I hope many more young people will come into politics after seeing you. And I hope that all of you will work together to take India into a future that we can be collectively proud of, where we can use technology as a friend, and use it for more transparency. And that's what we all hope to see in our lifetime, is to see a government that's much more transparent. So thank you so much for your time, and just count on us bringing you back here soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, madam. And I also want to thank all the viewers of this podcast. Our helpline number is active. Please let others know about this. We want to help as many senior citizens, the high risk population, as much as possible to stay home and protect them. Please call on our helpline number. If you know a senior citizen in my constituency who needs any help, please put the word out there so that they can call and they can seek help and benefit from our volunteers. And I would want to thank you, madam, for having me on this show. And thank you so much for all the great work that you're doing. I wish all of you the very best. And let's all meet in person after this whole pandemic dies down very soon.
We're going to sit across from each other and do this interview next time.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, madam. Namaste.
Namaste. So thank you everybody who's been listening. And I just want to say, please follow Tejasvi Surya, follow Ink Talks, follow Lakshmi Praturi. We'll have a lot more things coming your way to keep you abreast of what's happening between the government, the private enterprise, and the consulting group. Thank you very much for all of you to tuning in.